This is the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. Hello and welcome to Chewing the Cud podcast. My name's Andrew Jones and with me as always is...
Sarah Bolt.
How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm very well, Andrew. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, apart from I've had a stinking cold all Easter, but hey-ho. I hope everyone's had a good Easter. Now, it's the middle of April. Round now, we usually try and do one on the coming silage season to get people prepared for the silage season, but it looks like we're a bit behind this year, Sarah.
I was going to say the weather's been very kind over the Easter break. Whilst it might have been a bit cold, the sun has certainly been shining and the rain has held off.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was a few people went sort of end of March before, was it Storm Dave came in? And then certainly again, now we've had some sun. Was it 25 today? There's people out there making silage, which this early in April you don't expect. So I don't know if people have tested their grasses, but certainly those early ones when it was cold pre-Easter, maybe a bit short of sugars. So maybe people should be using additives to get them going. But I guess if the grass is there, there's plenty of people told me they've got plenty of grass. Why not make the most of it?
I was going to say it might just help get the rotation where you need it for the grazing platform.
Well, there's that. Or if they cut now, a good chance they'll have a good quality cut sort of mid-late May, which, this is probably not going to have quite the quality. If it's been growing all winters, we've not had a lot of frost, there's going to be plenty of fibre in it, plenty of lignin in it. So, that might be a good thing. Reset that platform and away they go. But anyway... we are here, we are doing a silage one. So today we are mainly talking about silage pits, their construction, the regulations, and a little bit of safety and a few other bits and pieces.
So just getting ready for the silage season.
Exactly. Let's go take a listen. This podcast has been brought to you today by Chewing the Cud Limited, who offer completely independent dairy and beef nutrition, cow signals advice and training, along with ROMS mobility scoring. For more details on these and other services available, please visit our website www.chewingthecud.com or email us directly on nutrition@chewingthecud.com. Chewing the Cud Limited now offers first aid training from a registered first aid at work trainer and experienced minor injuries practitioner. For more details, please visit our website www.chewingthecud.com or email us directly on training@chewingthecud.com. Hello, I'm Andrew Jones.
And I'm Sarah Bolt.
And welcome to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry.
Farmer, advisor, processor, and everyone else. We have topics and episodes that will interest you.
We discuss the practical and the technical aspects of different UK dairy industry topics.
We aim to make you think about what you're doing and ask yourself, can it be done differently?
Listen to us speak with specialists from inside and outside the industry about their area of expertise.
Subscribe and listen to episodes for free on your favourite podcast platform.
Sign up to our website, www.chewingthecud.com, for podcast notifications so you never miss an episode.
And links to our socials, including Instagram, Chewing the Cud Podcast, all one word, and remember, no G.
Or email us direct on podcast@chewingthecud.com.
If you like what we do, please share and leave us a review to show your support. And that's it. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello and welcome back to Chewing the Cud podcast. Our guest today is Jeremy Perkins, who is the National Sales Representative from looking after the clamp division of SiloStop Agri. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Very good. Nice journey down from my other appointments down in plenty of sunshine, lots of grass growing finally.
It is. The sun is shining. So it's April when this goes out. We usually try and put out a podcast that's somehow silage related. We've done one on oxygen barrier silage sheets in the past, silage additive, and last year we had Eric Dorr talking about making a plan and making the best of what you've got. But this came about because a client of mine is currently looking at potentially putting in some new silage pits. And I thought, I know a man who might be able to tell us a little bit more about it. So hence why Jeremy is here.
But before we get started, that like usual, Jeremy, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, well, I'm first generation farmer, I suppose, in my own right. I've got 40 suckler cows, belted another Galloway cattle on conservation grazing schemes, and I work for SiloStop Agri, covering the whole of the UK and Ireland on the concrete panels side of things.
Well, so most people probably know SiloStop more for their orange silage sheet, don't they?
Absolutely. We were ARC Agriculture. As in most things in farming, there's nothing really new under the sun. The panels system that we have was developed in the 1950s in Germany, called the Trautenzahner system. Big flat fields where they dig a pit into the ground, and then they put 6-foot-high sloping walls to gain compression to get rid of the oxygen. So we've developed and modelled that, and now have a 3 or a 4 metre high system, mostly for dairy farmers and biogas silage operations.
Yeah, so that's what we're here to do today, is mainly talk about that. But I guess that means we need to talk about some of the different regulations and different bits and pieces. But where would you like to start? I mean, I suppose the first thing I did when that client said to me and I said, I know somebody, was just ring you up and you came out and had a look at the site. So if someone's interested or wants to do a silage pit, what do they need to be taking into account before they make that decision, or where, or not, I suppose the decision's made on cattle number and stuff, but where it's going to be and all of those sorts of things?
I'd like to think that we are specialists rather than experts. I think the ethos of our company is either around sustainability or getting the most from your forage. We're keen exponents of good forage making because that's the cheapest feed that you're ever going to produce.
Well, just in my day job, I mean, let's be honest, makes it a lot more difficult if you haven't got good forage. Good forage is the basis for everything.
Same with King's Hay, really, sort of margin over purchase feeds, and the key to that is forages, whether that's grazed or conserved. So yeah,
Well, right, and I think very often people are either worried because they see increased improvement notices being served on substandard, or they're expanding and they want to have some advice. So we're very much involved in a consultative approach, looking at the whole farm first. I think we're almost in the West Country here. The late David
No, we are in the West Country
here. Yeah. Well, it's the bit coming over on the A303. I actually went further. I went down to Zeals and back across. So I come off the Salisbury Plain and I get the view over the whole of the Blackmore Vale. So it's wonderful. But he had a famous saying that an expert in Cornwall was only somebody that came from more than 20 miles away. And so I don't profess to be an expert, but we specialise in looking at an enterprise's silage requirements. We look at their future expansion for growth. We have various other systems which can be capitalised, much more bankable. So people for example, on 10-year FPTs, or where they're going to remodel a farm in future. We have vertical wall systems that can be lifted and placed with a Thunderbird 1 machine that we have, which works very well. But coming back to your first question, what we look at is silage quality, and it's a considerable investment. So we want somebody to get things right, suitable for their farm. We take into account with a specialist spreadsheet oxygenation losses, keeping the feed front fresh. We look at capacities, future-proofing for different yields, particularly with grass. Look what happened last year. But other years, bumpy years, we try and make sure we do a consultative advisory approach. If we can, we have an open-ended clamp so that you can blend, you can come from both ends, and you can get that compaction with your wheelings, not only down the sides, but on both ends as well.
I'll say we're probably jumping forward a little bit, but you mentioned it. What's your preference, single end or open end?
I think it depends on the farm location. Both have their pluses and minuses. Given a fair wind and a completely blank sheet, which, let's face it, most farms are already operating, so they don't have they do have some site constraints, but it would be an open-ended clamp. There's a trade-off between those that think I'm trying to sell too much concrete and having narrower clamps so that you stop the oxygenation losses. I mean, for instance, Dieter, our Belgian agent on the oxygen barrier films, is a dairy farmer in his own right. He has clamps that are only 2 meters high and 6.5 meters wide. Whole series of them.
Well, again, it makes the next question, which, again, we're probably getting not quite in the linear path that I had envisaged, but how many days in front of you do you think you should have on a face? 2 days, 3 days, 4 days? At what point?
We would like to see the face going back at about 1 meter a week so that you're keeping that fresh. That's in the back of our capacity calculations with surcharges, heights, etc. That's what we're working on.
And is that the same for maize as grass, or?
More or less. I mean, the cubic capacity calculations are different, but the actual feed face movement is about the same, yes.
I was going to say it'd be the same, likewise with whole crop as well, wouldn't it, ultimately?
Yeah.
But yeah, so say let's go back. So as that client did, they were interested. They had an idea of a site. I met you to make the introduction, just so you knew who they were. We went on the site. Really, what do you need to know if somebody's looking for this sort of thing?
The first thing is what their future plans are. So whether I need to build any expansion. A lot of farms now are more or less fixed in modules because a lot of farms are going over to a robotic milking. So they're thinking in multiples of 55 to 60. And that makes a difference. The geography, ease of handling. Typically, at some point, you've got to have a leachate tank, and that would normally be, let's say, with a 2% fall, but then going into some form of dilution. There's a difference between what we're talking about for dairy farmers, where you can't just put leachate back onto grass because it's going to kill it. You do have to dilute it. So there's a capacity calculation to meet the SAFO regs. We'll come on to those in a minute. And have a dilution, whereas most AD operators want that back because it's rocket fuel that's going to go back into a digester. So there's a difference there. Ease of working, I think that's one of the key things. Machines are getting bigger for contractors actually clamping, so good access. And then something that can be kept clean and used efficiently during feeding out with shear grab or whatever else.
Well, you mentioned there about size getting bigger. I was thinking about it this morning. I was walking the dog. I remember, this is only vaguely our first silage pit being built. I'm going to say it's sort of 77-ish, 78 maybe. But then it was 165 on the buck rake, wheels up in the air. It was 4-ton trailers.
Yep.
I mean, what is it now? It's usually huge loading shovels, or telescopic at least. And what the trailers now, 16? Are they possibly even 18 tons? Some of them.
The typical one, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's so different in terms of the machinery operations.
You need to be able to turn them round. You need to have access for swinging around for a TMR mixer or whatever you're going to do. That's important. Our wall ratings typically, I used to think a big machine was a 10-ton axle machine. In other words, 20 tons. Our vertical walls now have a standard loading, so for side impact from the machines that are compacting of 15-ton axles. And there is a couple of very brave people in Southern Ireland that have now construction, mining-based type loading shovels where they need a 20-ton
They must be huge
rating. So that's 40 tons. That is massive. Yeah.
Yeah, it just shows, dare I say it, in the last 50 years almost, how much things have changed and developed from silage being it wasn't the norm back then, really, was it, in the 70s? That was sort of when things started to change, to where it is now, and just how big these machines are in terms of tractors and everything. That you say, the fact that the concrete, I suppose, has got to be able to carry a lot more concrete weight and everything on it.
I think the other thing is that, I'm a farmer as well, so a pound saved is a pound earned, and you always think about costs of things, whereas silage has a value. And I think it's very surprising how undervalued that is as a resource. It's sometimes a problem for can we fit it into a thing, or how are we going to feed it out? But it has a value, and many farms actually underestimate it could be £70 a tonne in terms of valuation.
Yes, sometimes more.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, I suppose the example I've used on here before, it was maize rather than grass, was I remember a client said to me, maize is maize. Well, let me go and sample it and go and find out for you.
What's your chop length?
Well,
et cetera, yeah.
It was just simply I went and sampled his maize silage for him, and then over the course of winter I saved half a kilo a cow a day based on the fact we had an accurate maize analysis, which then leads on to being more sustainable and all these things. But simply the cost saving for him, over 150 cows, half a kilo a cow a day, so 75 kilos, it starts to add up.
Yeah, so I think your question, where we start is trying to optimise, make good silage. The farmer was on this morning, they have high-yielding cows and they want very, very high dry matter, and they work really hard at high dry matter silage to achieve their aims. Sadly now, because of particularly the milk price, sometimes the catalyst for a phone call for a new clamp is to do with SAFO regulations, which
so the environmental agency have been onto them basically.
In England, the Environment Agency. So the regulations, the 2010 regulation, SAFO, which stands for Water Resources Control of Pollution, Silage, Slurry and Ag Fuel Oil Regulations 2010. The Natural Resources Wales.
That's a mouthful just in itself.
Yeah, Natural Resources Wales are the equivalent in a devolved administration in Wales. They've got their 2021 regulations, which is called COPR, which is the Water Resources Control of Ag Pollution Regulations Wales 2021.
And how does that compare to SAFO?
Well, we spent a lot of time. It would be disingenuous to say it was an adversarial conversation, but it was an extended conversation. If you picture the analogy that if you go and have a house extension, you call an architect and you call the planning officer. The planning officer won't tell you what he wants, but he or she wants, but they'll tell you what they don't like or won't work with regulation. So what we did was we spent about 2 years with the Environment Agency at head office level, and we developed a 21-page build book which complied with what they wish to see. We use that.
This is in Wales.
This is the Environment Agency in England, UK, Andrew.
Right, yeah.
And then on the basis of that, we spoke with Natural Resources Wales. Their mandate is slightly broader because unlike England, where there have been some slurry grants available, slurry improvement grants, there's nothing for silage clamps. There's a little bit from some of the water authorities for nitrate stuff with roof coverings, but nothing for the actual silage clamps. In Wales, there is a considerable grant aiding. So we took what they wished out with our scope and made a bigger build book to be grant compliant for things that were actually, some of it was nothing to do with SiloStop Agri product, but it was an all-encompassing book for grant aid, and that was approved, and we've now got our first projects going in under that new regime in Wales. It's going well.
Good. But I obviously say it's the work behind the scenes that people don't see, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you made the site visit. You've where does it go from there? I suppose it's the different systems, like you've mentioned, the fact that you've got the panels to go on the earth bank, or you've got the
vertical wall systems.
Yeah. I guess it's all very much where the client wants to go with it, as you say, future-proofing it, all of these sorts of things.
So what we do is we do the first test is a capacity calculation, which takes cubic volumes against tonnages. We do an estimate for what the farm will actually either anticipate or what will require. We build a notional model for the silage clamps. We do a capacity calculation. We do a quote, the money numbers, obviously. And we put in a submission with our build book, the relevant build book for either Scotland, England or Wales. And then we have often the next stage is to have a dialogue either with farm staff or a civils contractor that's going to be doing the works to either remodel or build from scratch.
Okay, yeah. So it depends whether they're doing it internally or whatever in terms of what you actually want.
I mean, the vertical walls are a different thing. They're produced in the Netherlands, and we actually get more involved in the construction. So we have what I call Thunderbird 1, but it's a clamp that lifts these panels. They have to be laid down for the 4-meter running height regulations in the Netherlands. So they come on a truck. They can be way up to 12 tons a piece. We have a clamp that, when you look at it, it looks like an orange attachment on the end of a machine. Doesn't look at it, but it's €54,000 investment from our point of view. And it basically grips these with a neoprene pad on either side at 300 bar pressure, lifts them off a truck, rotates them vertically and puts them in place. We typically, we've done a couple of projects which are 250, 280 panels on any one site. And we place those on a pre-prepared site, 20, 25 a day, based on what the farm design actually requires.
And then, but in terms of the earth bank, what's the go for them?
The earth bank is it's a bit the same as house building in the old days with vernacular. It depends on what material you have to hand. So there's a lot of Welsh shale. There's anything with a clay fraction is better. Either it's an existing chalk or earth bank, which is now deemed to need lining because of the SAFO regulations, or creating an earth bank, allowing it to settle, making a wooden frame template and grading back with a 360 to a 23-degree angle. And that's the bearing point for these walls. Then we have a system that the key part of our sloping wall system is the seating channel. It's 2 channels as a ring beam that goes around the perimeter. That is pre-leveled to a 2% fall, typically, on the silage clamp. The outer channel supports the panel, leaning over, and it's propped temporarily. The back channel is there to catch any leachate. The earth bank has an impervious membrane over it. And there's about 250 mil depth of pea gravel or 40 mil gravel that's put in behind. That's the bearing surface. And I mean, the key point is it should be maintenance free and able to function for 30 years without much apart from some surface treatments or whatever on the outside.
So really, what are the SAFO regulations? As you've mentioned them, what do they require from farmers?
Containment of leachate. I think that's the most simple thing that SAFO regs. So they don't want to see leachate being able to get through soil and out into the environment, or particularly into watercourses, Andrew. So
are earth bank silage pits done for now, or have they've got a finite life, or they are gone?
There are other systems that people get very worried. I mean, I've seen retrospective channels put around the outside of clamps and other forms of covering. But the premise is that even if you've got a chalk face where you could argue that leachate isn't going to go into that chalk, it's got to have an impermeable barrier of some sort. So our system is an example of how you can overcome that. The most important thing is that there must be some form of containment around the outside. That's what the SAFO regulations are asking for.
But I mean, that's been the case for a long time, though, hasn't it? I mean, I certainly remember a silage pit, mid-80s maybe. And that, as you say, that had the channel around the outside to catch all the effluent and be put in a tank, etc., etc. So in that regard, it's not anything particularly new.
Perhaps now it's now becoming more something that is being looked at. You have incentivized agriculture inspectors within the Environment Agency. You have people assessing water quality. I mean, you can argue plenty of other things go in a river, but
it's quite a nasty thing in the river, though, isn't it?
River catchment area and catchment sensitive area farms are going to be the ones that are the principal focus to start with. Yeah.
I mean, the EA's got a lot more inspectors than it had sort of 2 years ago now, hasn't it? So
It
there's
has,
a lot more
yeah.
people are getting
Yeah.
those
I
inspections.
think it's a bit like
and-
DVSA. They're also self-funding. So, yeah, you can't do things after 4 o'clock anymore, sort of thing. Yeah.
But I guess it's all good because that effluent, you know, it has a high oxygen loading into rivers and can cause, you know, devastation if too much of it gets in the wrong place, isn't it?
Yeah.
So-
I mean, I think that there's a difference. And what I try to do is to be seen not as an ambulance chaser chasing regulators, but where people are making the right decisions for the right business reasons, then let's get it right for what works. Yeah.
We say ultimately it's for the benefit of everybody, because the last thing you want is the news stories of all the fish have died because someone's let some effluent go in there. So you know it's all for the right reasons. It's just making sure it happens. So you briefly mentioned Scotland, but I mean in terms of the Welsh, what's the difference between the English regulations and the Welsh regulations?
Mandating, for example, for grants, only tarmac flooring for the surface of the clamps is acceptable. So a limestone-free tarmac. I quite like that.
Not concrete.
No.
Okay.
And I quite like that in that you can shape it. So you can shape it to bring leachate away from the walls towards the centre and then forwards or either way towards the leachate.
I was going to say, what's the reason for that? Because it doesn't, what's the word?
It gets
break down in the same way?
It gets rid of acids away from it. Yes, the tarmac itself doesn't break down. I mean, I've been on projects where you've got 30-year-old tarmac and it's still as good as new. It doesn't pit like and degrade like concrete does.
How does that affect it in a cost factor point of view?
It more or less the same price. It depends on the final specification, but it's broadly in line. And the other thing is, if you ever did if you see older forms or weaker concrete, wherever the leachate is emanating from isn't where it's getting in. Whereas with tarmac, if you on the hottest day of the year you put your TMR wagon's foot goes into the tarmac, you can repair that with a watering can of hot tar and some tar and roll it. So you can self-manage things yourself better.
So maintenance is far easier.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a whole long list, but a few small, for instance, is the difference you asked between COPR and the Welsh regulations and SAFO. They ask for an inspection chamber that goes between on the drainage network that goes between the clamp and the leachate tank, so they can see if there's any soil getting through into the system, as a for instance.
Okay, so yeah, they're monitoring its effectiveness more closely.
Yeah.
So is your preference tarmac then, by the sounds of it?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I hadn't realised that.
I've never seen a tarmac silage pit. So
no.
Maybe we need to go to Wales, Andrew.
There's plenty in England as well. You'd be more than welcome, Sarah. Come along any time. Yeah.
So I don't think I have either. I suppose, let's be honest, the image in my head still of a silage pit is concrete floor, RSJs, railway sleepers, and that's not what they are anymore, is it?
No, Weeping Moor railway sleepers are out now, definitely.
Yeah. I know, have been for a long time, but I suppose there's just plenty of them still around, though, aren't there?
The other thing I think is we try and make a one-stop shop for those that want it, so that in terms of good silage making, being safe and making it sustainable, so oxygen barrier films to prevent oxidation losses. We have secure covers, so UV stabilizing covering materials as well. Our sister company, we now own Intershape Dairy Company, and we bring in bunker mats, which are 22 kilos, so meet the manual handling regs, but do a darn good job. I mean, a lot of farms have gone from whole tires, which I can remember in my pre-college days was a filthy job, and everybody ran for the hills whenever they were asked to come in slop smelly water all over themselves.
I was going to say, how many times did we fill our wellies with sloppy, yucky water?
And it's not only that. If you want to peel back for the next cut, it's just a filthy, horrible job. Gravel bags, we still sell gravel bags, but a lot of people have gone to either tire walls to keep the metal out of danger for cows' ingestion. But these bunker mats, they don't blow away. They can be evenly spaced. They're easy to put up with a teleporter on a pallet to near where you're working, lift out, job done.
And I guess storage as well, far easier to store as you're going back.
They are. Yeah, they just look like a stack of gym mats when they're not on a clamp. Absolutely.
Thinking of storage makes me ask questions. So if you're going for one with earth banks, is there an ideal width between clamps to put them? So for argument's sake, you can store your mats as you take them off, or
it's one of the advantages. So the sloping wall system is typically at the base between the panels, 4 meters, the earth bank being about 3.2 at the base between clamps, and at the top 1.2. So it provides a ready area to safely walk along, bring and roll back plastic, or to store those materials. Yeah.
And you can make them obviously wider if you want to, I'm guessing.
And the outside bunds, the minimum we would expect to see are about 4.5 meters. Typically, most people make them about 7 meters because it's an easy angle to approach for walking up and down, maintaining, mowing, grazing sheep on, whatever you want to do. And it also is a green covered berm. So in terms of planning and appeal, when you're looking at it from the side, it looks like a green hill.
So I was going to ask about planning. Do you, as a company, help farmers with that side of it, or is that
we work with planning consultants? I mean, the lot of people that Andrew would know who are consultants in a generalist way for nutrition and other things, or just in terms of planning. It's the farmer would have to get planning permission for new rather than replenishment. We supply the drawing models that most people drop in to make their planning applications. Yeah.
So help make it easier, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the things we mentioned there is safety. I mean, that's one thing, certainly the conversation we had last year with Eric talking about preparing for silage. It's the safety of everybody involved. Where are you guys in terms of helping along with that?
Well, we didn't get into the business of wanting to make metalware because we wanted to sell metalware, but it's something our customers asked for. So we've developed a handrail system. A lot of people were using a proprietary key clamp or whatever type system if they had that for working at height regs. The difficulty is it's either on or it's not. So what we've developed is a handrail system that clamps onto our and other people's systems, either vertical or sloping walls. And the clamp actually has a vertical spigot and then a handrail, bent galvanized handrail, 2-rail handrail, and any individual panel can be lifted out so you can gain access and then put back on readily. Or if you want to, for example, roll down the sides with a machine, you can lift them all off and then you can put them all back on quickly and easily. So like all things, if it's easy to use, it's most likely that people are going to carry on using it rather than just leaving them off and forgetting about it.
Yeah, that's the answer to most things, isn't it? If it's easy.
It's key on farm, isn't it?
Yeah, if it's easy to use, people will do it.
Yeah.
They will do it. But yeah, I mean, let's, as we're saying this, just as a thing, everybody stay safe when it comes to silage making, because it's not just working at height, it's big machinery. There's lots of potential dangers involved. And
it's pressure to get the job done. If you've got larger sheets that need to be pulled back, they get covered every night, overnight. If the axis is ready and you can do it, otherwise they get left exposed, and you're starting your oxidation losses even before you've ensiled.
Yeah, exactly. As you say, it should be covered every night, ideally, because otherwise you are losing, as you say, it's losing its effectiveness straight away. And then we are so. Is there anything else you think we should be talking about in terms of preparing or organising or getting a new site ready or getting a new site to happen?
I think the main thing is being aware of timeliness. This time of the year, we're coming into April now, and some people say, okay, well, do you think you can make it, but I need to have it ready by second cut because I've run out of space. So our factory in Colchester, we have a precast factory with a gantry system, crane system that runs in the factory and then outside to a storage yard. And we try wherever possible to incentivize some of our customers to take deliveries of the panels ready for construction in that winter period so we can carry on stacking them. But let's just say it's all of us are the same. We tend to think about things when we need it immediately. And a little bit of planning, and now finding ground workers to do things at the drop of a hat. People aren't around like they used to be. So it needs some time planning ready for whatever. The number of customers we now see that are forced into using an ag bag temporary system or whatever for a year as a stopgap because they haven't got their construction Gantt chart. And they knew it. They knew where they wanted to be. And so we're trying to get that decision and make sure people have got all the options available to them, let's say by Christmas, so that those decisions can be made in a timely way.
It did make me sort of think as we said, let's put this out in April. It's like, is this a good time? Because we're not trying to make people think about silage pits now. It's just a general conversation about silage from the angle of silage pits, because you're not going to have them ready for as soon as if someone suddenly wants them now, it's not going to happen.
No, but it's applicable. I mean, whole crop or certainly maize, it's timely. I mean, this is we met and I complimented you on a previous podcast, and I'm a fan of listening to your podcast. So I thought I was invited as a speaker in a more generalist way rather than just trying to sell a product or shove something down somebody's throat.
Exactly.
And I would say there is always an opportunity to learn something and look at some of the AD operators and what they're doing with some of their sites. And they're just as cost sensitive as farmers. You know, the RHI inputs have gone down markedly unless they use straw or muck or other co-products. But they're looking at their costs and they want the most efficient per cube storage solution. And that applies. I'm sure that applies to farmers just the same, larger dairy farms.
What you've just said it. What do AD do differently? Do they do anything differently, or they've got the same regulations to keep to, obviously? But do they do anything particularly different? Is there what different slant do they have?
They optimize their storage. They tend to have wider clamps and use them faster. They use, for example, they work with us to develop a 4 meter high panel system. I mean, there's a lot of engineering in it. Each panel weighs 3.1 tons rather than 1.6 tons. So a 360 to swing those over, it makes even a 27-ton machine swing over. But if you can plan for it, they've now worked on 28 to 32 meter wide clamps and optimizing the cost per cube and the best benefit for, the most fuel energy efficient solution.
But are they getting across that face quick enough, I suppose, would be my only question for that.
Yes. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
The size of the plants is big enough to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
So, as it is that time of year, you've got an older pit. It needs tidying up, ready for new season. We're not talking a new pit now. Mm-hmm. What would you be suggesting people look at, or potential solutions, or what should they be doing to be getting that clamp ready for silage?
Well, we have a range of wall paints and sidewall films. I'm a great fan of sidewall films for reducing the exposure from the sides. We have quite a few customers who use repair concrete to patch, stop those leachate losses, stop the oxygen getting in. Broken panels can be replaced, so that we actually cast some, instead of them being lips with offset lips, they can be cast with a lip on the same side, so they can literally be a replacement panel that slots in the middle without a lot of complicated threading in. I think that the main thing, and this is coming back to our discussion earlier about do you favour back walls or open-ended clamps? There's an arms race, isn't there, to get to the back of the clamp before the new season crop if you've got a back wall. If you've got an open-ended clamp, you can start filling from the other end, and as long as it's covered, that material can stay there, and then you've got the opportunity to blend later on. So a bit of planning and thought as to how you're using your last of your materials before the new cut.
And I guess thinking about making sure it's clean as well. You don't want any mouldy silage left in the bottom.
Absolutely.
Causing that spoilage right at the start.
Quite right. Yeah.
Again, you've just said really what the same thing Eric said last year. It's planning. It's making sure everything is planned in advance. It's not, let's be blunt, I have had it, and I know I'm not the only one. Can I have some silage sheet, please? Yeah, when do you want it? Well, we started cutting this morning, so ideally tomorrow. Okay, I'll see what I can do. Just make sure you've got your sheet or your additive or whatever it is on farm, ready to go. If you know you normally cut beginning of May, 1st of May. So it's there ready to go, not this sudden...
All the peas, perfect preparation.
Wow.
And all the others.
Yeah. I mean, we, of course, it's human nature. We try, my colleagues on the plastic side, oxygen barrier film side, they try to have a stock with wholesalers of the standard sizes for that odamic factor. But planning, and it's amazing, all of a sudden things catch up with them. It doesn't take long before you're on to the next cut. Yeah,
definitely. Half of it is undoubtedly the planning. It's like everything. If you want to do a good job, it's planned for it, isn't it? If you suddenly turn up and think it's going to happen, then that just doesn't work.
Start getting your contractors on side as well.
Yeah, that's another big discussion for another day in terms of contractors. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, filling the silage pit, that's a whole discussion in terms of contractors, because I've definitely seen contractors turn up with six trailers at once, and then half an hour you get nothing else. And so I've seen maize pits collapse and everything because they've pushed it all on and they've not done, whereas it should be that, constant roll, and you're only rolling those couple of inches. It's not put a load on and hope for the best. You've got to keep working it.
A couple of years ago, we were taken to our Dutch partner, Bosch Beton, one of their farms in the Netherlands. Guy was milking single-handedly 220 cows himself, and he makes a lasagna of maize, whole crop, grass, 7 or 8 layers. And okay, it has to be said that the system that they used incorporated an EU grant, but what this guy was doing was having contractors where within 2 hours notice, he had a system to uncover the silage covers. And basically it was a metal gantry system on top of a vertical wall system with a sheet which is probably twice the specific weight of a truck curtain signer, and it would basically roll it back. Some very interesting additional features like a catenary wire with a steel mesh curtain in the front to stop the starlings easing the front face. Wade tubes which were longitudinal, it looked like fire hoses but full of salt water. The front was sealed with a dam. Literally, the end of the sheet had a bar in it, raising it up. So you created a water dam of salt water and a pumping system that took that salt water out into a bladder tank. And at the press of 2 buttons, this farmer could expose that clamp for the next of the 7 or 8 cuts within 2 hours' notice. Very impressive system.
Definitely.
And 44% dry matter. Doing really good stuff. And he was so particular. He was a tall guy. I mean, I'm 1.8 meters, and I was looking up to him. So he was literally with his hand pointing to the top corner and apologising about something that may have been 20 centimetres by 20 centimetres of oxidizing material just on the corners, up in the top corners. And he really meant it. He was apologising about that. He was wondering how he was going to dig that off with a fork before he put the shear grab there. And I mean, that's the attention to detail. That stuff was rocket fuel.
It is. It's the attention to detail that can make the difference.
Yeah. When the milk price is down, he's losing less money. When the milk price is up, because they're the same as all the other places, they're under the cosh, he's making very good money. So he's investing for that top line.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's that attention to detail to make the most of what you've got.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess, look, I'm a fan of the oxygen barrier sheets, undoubtedly. And it just gets me sometimes. I know it's easy for me to say it's not my money, but you've just spent thousands and thousands of pounds to put that silage in there. Why would you not want to spend that little bit more, those oxygen barrier sheets? Because you don't get the same sort of shrinkage, you don't get the same sort of waste. So you've got more silage in there, you've got more bang for your buck, basically. So why wouldn't you invest in some plastic to keep more of what you've got, basically, and make more of what you've got?
We used to do a crude payback thing, but it looked too like foot in the door sales technique. But it wasn't. It was just a genuine sentiment to say, if you're going to look at that building over there, that's 40 years old. It had a financial life of 20 years. It's got a physical life of 30 years, and it's still holding up after 40 years. Why would you not do the same with your silage clamp systems? Because if you value your silage at £70 plus a tonne, and whether it's poorer, it's still a certain number of kilos going through a room and every day, this is what you need to be. And over a 30-year period, that's a sensible payback decision.
Definitely. Now, sustainability. I know Tim, your boss, is very keen on this. I guess there's two angles I'm thinking of. Concrete, some would say, is not the most sustainable product. Are there other options coming? Plastic, are there other options coming?
Yeah, I think the ethos in our company, some people who are on aligned contracts will be aware of supermarkets with their scope 1 and 2 emissions targets, farms, and then scope 3 as well. We, as a company, our chairman is very, very strong. He spent the lion's share of his time in the construction industry, and he's really majoring on that. From our concrete side, in answer to your question, we're looking at cement replacement products. Bosch Beton, our partner, is doing just the same.
Anything look potential at the moment?
They're on a journey that from product 1 to product 5. They've made product 5 in a geopolymer, but it's not commercially sustainable. And with their energy carbon reduction programs with cement replacement, they're between stage 2 and 3 at the moment. Their factory is 3.3 hectare site, one building. Admitted it's got some steel pillars in the centre, but it's one building. It's got a 5.4 megawatt solar farm on the roof. Even though they're a concrete company, they're net exporters to the Dutch grid with electric every day after their own factory.
That's yeah.
I've driven down here today. I'm a high mileage driver, so I think my company tolerates the fact that I've got a petrol electric hybrid company car, but everybody else is on electric cars. Our sister companies delivering and using cranes, they're all on HVO. So they are really laser focused on how we can work towards being carbon neutral. And I mean, it's a serious intent from our chairman that he's going to get there. It's embargoed, what I can say, but we have worked with a Cranfield PhD student for a 2-year study on plastics. So that's another answer to your question. So
alternatives to plastic.
Yeah, it's at the forefront of our minds what we do it and how we do it. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that concrete works are energy intensive and carbon intensive, but we've made great strides in what we've done already.
And on that note, we should say that obviously all the plastics are recyclable.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's certainly an important point to make.
Yeah.
And if you go back to one of our very first podcasts, long before Sarah was ever involved, it was talking about farm recycling and using and recycling all your plastics and stuff. So there are all these options out there to make the most of your plastics. Well, try and make it as cyclic a system as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's not glib. We all work from home. We have a couple of offices which are designed to be on public transport networks, and I know our chairman wouldn't entertain anything that wasn't as environmentally friendly as possible. So, yeah,
it's a real credit to the business, and I think it's probably really nice to be able to talk about that. And there's so much pressure put on farmers from a carbon point of view.
It's
but
true.
Actually, just doing your bit as well, I think is a really nice.
I'm old school. I'm 63, and I understand the methane cycle and a few other things, and I get very aggravated as a lot of red meat producers about some of the stuff. But I also see, one of my landlords is actually putting a small solar unit into his big house in the village simply to charge 3 cars efficiently. So there's lots of people paying a lot of attention to things. It used to be like a bit like logistics used to be painted on the side of a lorry. Sustainability was the buzzword. Well, it's gone beyond that, where there are people in our group company that are specifically charged with delivering on that and year on year improving on it.
Well, it's coming more and more. And look, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just maybe we're all getting a bit fed up of maybe that word, or we need to be we need to, what's the word I'm looking for? No,
it goes hand in hand with efficiency, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. We need to reframe it. That was the word I'm looking for. That ultimately it's all efficiency.
Yes.
It's all efficiency. If we can be more efficient and, we're saving money, then and efficiency at the start of the whole conversation is quality forage. If we can get quality forage, you don't need to buy that half a kilo extra concentrate or whatever it happens to be. It still comes back to quality forage.
And efficiencies. I mean, the farm I was on this morning, things that are nothing to do with, but I spot them, the fact that every single cow yard gate has a human hoop, so that a man can walk through for immediate welfare attendant, but it's efficient for labour. The whole site was designed on a slope, so everything moves downhill. Auto scrapers. That farm was immaculate, but also really delivering. It's great to see. So that thought process, when he's talking to me about his silage clamp design, he's almost on it before me with his checklist for what he's already done. He actually said to me, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to reduce walling because in trying to make these clamps wider. What you've got to understand is those cows in there, pedigree, they're on high production. I want to have narrow clamps and I'll pay a commercial rate, but, I want to have
I'll pay
what's
for the
best
privilege.
for,
Yeah.
and he was a tenant.
Yep.
Hasn't got much contribution from his landlord. Son's in the business, looking at it very sensibly for how he can make something smart, So all the usual stuff that you probably see day in, day out when you go on farms, auto pushers from robotic auto pushers for the front feed barriers and all the things that really long-term deliver up,
Yeah, definitely. We've talked about getting the site. We've talked about some of the regulations. We've talked about a little bit about safety. We've talked a little bit about getting your clamp ready for the new season. Is there anything else you think we should know that we haven't spoken about?
I don't think so. I think it's this integrated approach to having something where you look at all those small elements for UV barrier. Some people have a plastics thing with birds with pecking, so that you've got to. It very much is attuned to what the individual farmer circumstances are. The main thing is to start early and to have something that is the right system and make a decision once. I go on to AD plants where the contract has been gun for by a couple of big German capital equipment companies for the main digesters things, and then let out on a contract for silage clamps, and it's just done cheaply. And 8 years down the line, you got steel panels with what I call the grain wall little clips with the panels that's corroding around the outside. They're having to redo it. They're having to pecker up great big areas of concrete with the high traffic area. Now, I'm not saying that if you've got a different specification, you've got more reinforcement, different type of concrete. But the corners that were cut mean that in 8 to 10 years, you see things are happening. And now the dairy farms don't change hands very often, whereas a lot of pioneers who start a project want to do a turn and actually divest their investment in 5 years, 10 years. And you're noticing a lot of the tier one energy companies are now having to invest in farm-based green crop energy as part of their overall portfolio. Their levels of due diligence at investment going into something that's been designed sort of 5-8 years ago is at a much higher level. Now, instead of looking at it as a red tractor auditor or whatever the analogy would be in the farm thing, if you said, you've got to change a bank manager and I'm going to put on another 200 cows and we're going to go in and look at all those investment decisions that have got you to 550 cows now, would that stand the same scrutiny? So it's really easy. I mean, I'm a farmer, and like I said, pound saved is a pound earned. So I'm kind of got a foot in both camps, and I can see. But if you look at the Dutch model, longer term sustainability: invest once, invest well, invest for the best efficiency. That's got to be the right adage if you're going to stay in the business. And there's some people that are going to give up, but there are a lot of people that are expanding or wanting to stay long-term in the dairy business. I want to work with them.
That's really good advice for anything, isn't it?
Yeah, do it once and do it right. Completely agree. It's interesting because like you're saying, will it stand up? I mean, and I probably said this last year when we were talking with Eric. I have one experience of going on an AD plant, and I had to watch a 10-15 minute safety video before I was even allowed pretty much anywhere out the office. It wasn't just like farming, you kind of rock up. Yeah, hopefully most of us have got some kind of farm sense having been round, but there are definitely some that don't. But it's the fact that I had to do that before I was even allowed on farm. And it's just different perspective.
In the bit of my car, I've got my farming kit and my dog, sheepdog, but amongst that, I've got 6 different types of PPE that are required for AD plants. So they're controlled. Some of it is really good. Some of it you can be a stranger. You can have a safety induction as a visitor, like you were.
Yeah.
But then they put, when you, on your hard hat, you have a sticker with a reference number. So if anything happened to you, they know exactly who should be looking after you, who you are. They're high traffic area sites, and their safety record is amazing. And perhaps my son, rather than me, will see heightened levels of awareness on farms as they get bigger.
And probably for good reason when we look at some of the statistics of farming incidents and the like.
Sadly, we lost a neighbour of mine 2 weeks ago, 71, in a grain bin. I was a retained firefighter, and I would have probably attended there, and I probably would have volunteered to go down on a rope. But the standard operating procedure is, for safety now, the fire service cut the side of the bin out, but it was too late. And he'd done that all his life. Very sad. Very sad.
Definitely. And I don't really want to sort of almost end our time on that sad note, but I'm looking at the time thinking it's time we start to wrap this up. So, any last words of wisdom from yourself?
I don't know what the words of wisdom. I've enjoyed my journey, and I keep saying, late David Penhaligon, an expert, comes from more than 20 miles away. But no, I regard myself as a specialist. The thing is, we've done a couple of SAFO roadshow speaker things at livestock markets all around the country, and that if people have got queries, I'm not necessarily interested in selling a system to them, but I would definitely help anybody that wants any advice on how that, particularly if they've got an existing system and they need to retrofit or whatever. Quite happy to engage on that.
Okay. Sarah?
Oh, it's a hard one. I think, we've had a really good discussion there. And I think certainly hearing about both whether it's new silage pits or whether, as you say, it's retrofitting and really keeping on the right side of our inspectors. It's all hard for farmers to do, but it's good to know that there's somebody there that can help. So
to finish, as Sarah said, it's a difficult one. I mean, there are regulations you need to follow. There are answers like all of these things. And really, it still comes back to repeating again, it's preparation, whether that is thinking about when you want a silage pit and not expecting it suddenly to happen, or whether it's making sure you've got your sheet on farm, or making sure that pit is clean and repaired and all the additives on farm or the contractors lined up.
And appreciating the value of the homegrown
forage.
Yeah. Because, you invest in better straws if you're trying to improve the genetics of your herd. Why, when you've got the grass growing and it's out there and you've cared and it's price of nitrogen that it is now, why would you not want to optimize that performance?
Yeah, no, completely. And that's it. It's being prepared to make the most of that system that you've got. And we've talked about silage pits, but ultimately it's still just a bit of a reminder to be prepared for what's
absolutely
for the coming season in terms of all the other things that we've spoken about.
Yeah.
But on that note, I guess it's a goodbye from me.
it's a goodbye from me, and thank you.
Nice to meet you, Sarah. Thank you, Andrew.
No, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. And now for the really boring bit, I'm afraid, the legal disclaimer. The information provided during this podcast has been prepared for general information purposes only and does not constitute advice. The information must not be relied upon for any purpose, and no representation or warranty is given to its accuracy, completeness, or otherwise. Any reference to other organisations, businesses or products during this podcast are not endorsements or recommendations of Chewing the Cud Limited. The views of Andrew Jones are personal and may not be the views of Chewing the Cud Limited, and the views of Sarah Bolt are personal and may not be the views of Kingshay Farming and Conservation Limited and any affiliated companies. For more information on the podcast and details of services offered by Chewing the Cud Limited, visit www.chewingthecud.com. Thank you and goodbye.